Right, thank the speaker for her speech and invite the first speaker to closing government.
Ladies and gentlemen, there has been a history of rebellion in Libya, but that does not mean that Libya is a place where it's only a state against a very small or a state against its people, but it's rather one group against the other group. And we say that we are in a unique position in history to advance the other group that has been in opposition and that does not manage to get any power, to give a bit of power and to guarantee security to their own people, but also to give the security and keep the security to Tripolitana region people that support Gaddafi. I have so many constructive material, I don't know how I will get through this. I will talk to you about ending war and why it is impossible and we can't just do that. I'm going to talk to you about the short-term solution and how power sharing will help us, and then I will talk to you about long-term solution, and I will do with everything that the first opposition said. We firstly want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we already have reason to believe that Gaddafi might be a normal person. For example, he gave up nuclear disarmament program after having economic sanctions against him, and we said that's a very good reason to say that he can be rationed with. We also said that he has done some good things for his people. For example, it has a quite good level of education, good economy, he has given money to people, there's this great dam being made in order for people to get water. So we said that he has been doing quite well. Sit down. We said that where he hasn't done quite well is the region of Cyrenaica, and why he hasn't done well there is because his support does not derive from that region, which means that this region, yes, has been historically disadvantaged. But we say, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not a reason to throw away Gaddafi, but this is a reason why to also give power to the people of Cyrenaica through having rebels more power. Now, speaking about this idea of how rebels have won a war, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition is just completely lying, or they just don't know anything. Rebels don't have any weapons. The only weapons they have, according to BBC News, is the weapons they get from the government forces that come overboard, right? Gaddafi's national army is really weak because Gaddafi has never wanted a strong army. But what he has is gold. Large amounts of gold because firstly they have gold, and secondly they got all through oil, right? So we say that Gaddafi has money to hire people from Chad, from Niger, from Mali, from all over these countries, and to hire very good mercenaries who will make very little pieces of these rebels, right? So we say that the only way for these rebels to even keep their position is to have a very big amount of Western money and Western military to be put there. For example, a surge or taking down that. We say that this is impossible, right? We say that taking the West going in there more is impossible for two reasons. Firstly, because it will not go through the United Nations Security Council, because China and Russia already were kind of opposing this, but they're definitely totally against taking down Gaddafi. We secondly say that even Germany doesn't support taking down Gaddafi, and we say that getting these sort of even permission from the United Nations Security Council is impossible. We secondly say even if we get the permission, we never get the truth, because let's be honest, we're stuck anywhere else in the world. We're stuck in Cote d'Ivoire, we're stuck in Afghanistan, and we need troops in Afghanistan to win a war. And we say that because Gaddafi has all of this money, because Gaddafi has all of these awesome mercenaries, we will never win this war. We already have 400,000 refugees hiding in neighboring countries where there are authoritarian regimes, and we do not want to prolong this conflict, and we do not want to get civilians going there. And then they said this wonderful thing about Gaddafi being unpunished. Ladies and gentlemen, Gaddafi has managed to kill some people during his regime. And a year ago, we were the ones who sold him $400 million worth of weapons, both chemical and normal weapons, because we thought he was a cool dictator. So let's think about it, just sit down. So we said that already there is this idea that he does not need to go under ICC. And we also say that since ICC and its mandate to prosecute crimes against humanity comes from Security Council, which means that he will not go there as well, and even if he goes there, he can always hide in Mali or South Africa, where he has already got his power base. Now, speaking more about this ending war constructive material, as I've proven to you firstly, they cannot win this war independently at all, and they're already losing. The only way is for the Western surge to come, and even then, if the Western surge, through some sort of magic, which has not happened, should come, we still cannot win this war, ladies and gentlemen, because it is a desert, because we don't speak the language, because Gaddafi has a lot of money and a lot of power. Now, for example, when we speak about Egypt and Tunisia and how the revolution happened there, the problem was that then it wasn't really a unified nation against a dictator. Well, here we just have a country that has different three regions, that two of them support Gaddafi and one does not. And we said that is the difference why this revolution won't come through that. Now, the short-term solution, why we have done power sharing, for example, example, in South Africa, after the apartheid ended, we still allowed people to rule because we believed it is more beneficial. While we allowed Bosnia to have leaders from both groups in the government, and we said that Gadafi is the only alternative for these tribal people. While we allowed to do that in Zimbabwe, where the inflation has actually decreased and where we can hope for some more democracy and better governance. It is because, ladies and gentlemen, while Gaddafi may be, yes, a dictator, he still has some accountability to people from his tribes, right? It is not democracy of the Western sense. It is a democracy of the sense of Africa, of this idea that I owe something to my people that may not be all of the people in the country, right? But we still, that's really good that Gaddafi will do something. We say, ladies and gentlemen, sit down, that even if Gaddafi does not support Cyrenaica right now, this power-sharing deal will allow us to get support and gold for Cyrenaica and not spend all of that huge amounts of gold and oil on war, but rather on actually doing good things for the whole country. We say, ladies and gentlemen, that the other people do not trust rebels, right? The other people from those regions do not trust rebels, and that is why they have not crossed over. And we said that when rebels take over, even if this would happen, and I proved it does not, we said that in this case, in a moment, it will in just case mean that rebels will also be completely unable to do anything, and we also have no reason to believe that rebels are better because supposedly they even consist of members of Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda. Go.
Your whole talk it doesn't have any point, because what we're talking about, that the moment we went in, more and more people went to the other side, and they're going there every
down there and said, no, the only ones went for officials. And actually, it's kind of funny. The leader of rebels was the one who was actually a friend of Gaddafi. So I don't think it actually proves that rebels are even good, because they actually just wanted more power themselves, and it was just a good moment to gain that power. And we said it's much better that we have two sides that support their own ethnic base, rather than we have one side that just deals with the one ethnic base, but that's not just Gaddafi. Now, moving on to the second idea, we said that we promote this culture of legitimacy, saying that through power sharing, that you have power if you have some sort of ethnic or political base. And we said that that is good, ladies and gentlemen, because it will mean that we support accountability and this idea that you not only need to do this through strength. We also say, ladies and gentlemen, that we will send a very good message to dictators by saying, please give up a bit, and then your lives of people will improve, which means we encourage dictators in other countries to give away little of their power in order for people to gain better rights. And we say that that is much better than allowing them to stick to their power and die, because we need to bomb the hell out of the country, the whole country, and the dictator itself. And we are not able to bomb the hell out of these dictators. So for all these reasons, I ask you to propose. Thank you.
Right, thank the speaker for her speech. Invite the first speaker for the closing opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have here a clear case. What I would like to do in here, now, in my 7 minutes, I would like first to do a little rebuttal, because they are somehow contradictory. I will point out this contradictory, because on the one way they say, okay, the country is divided, yes, you have Cyrenaica on the one side and the two tribes on the other, and somehow they are going to cooperate in one country if they power share, okay? So this is the problem, serious problem. So if they accept the division, and that they cannot cooperate, how they can do the power sharing, okay? This is the first contradiction. Then I will move on, do a brief refutation. I will show you the case of Sudan, which is the most similar case in here that we are happening. Not Bosnia, not Zambia, not South Africa, but Sudan. I will point you out that. I will show why the Baltic states, which was the only example from the first government, is not suitable in here. And then I will move to our constructive argument, which is the Arabic states, okay? What's the perspective of the whole region and how they are going to cooperate in that? So, starting with a bit of rebuttal, okay? You say that Gaddafi is rational, but the only argument that you gave us is that he is rational only when he is approached with a lot of power, okay? So if we demand him, if we put a certain pressure on Gaddafi, maybe he will see something, okay? And giving him a power sharing is not putting a pressure on him. He will do everything to maintain his power, and we know that his sons' armies, what are they doing in the southern part of the country? They are violating people, doing a lot of harm, okay? Not much is said about that, but his son's army is probably as violent as some African leaders that we know of Burkina Faso and so on. Okay, so if he is such an accountable person, why he does this with the army of his son? Okay, that he founds and supports, and this is clear. Secondly, the weak army. We are on the western side. We have an article published on Monday by Obama, Sarkozy and Cameron, and they clearly said that we will support the rebel troops, okay? We will fund them. Egypt is already funding them. They are doing the military support. They're on the desert. They are preparing there for fights. So clearly power is shifting to the rebellion, okay? So if we are a state that is a democratic one, and if we believe that the people should have their own chance to express their view, we should support them, and we are already supporting, and the West is clear on that. The Russia case is not valid, because on one hand, Putin said that it's not good to do that, what the West does, and it was a crusade. But Medvedev, what would Medvedev said? Medvedev said that Putin is not right. So, okay, in the biggest supporter of Gadafi, there is no clear point how they should present themselves. So the support in the international relation for Gadafi is really, really weak, and China is not willing to intervene. So as if we approach it for the international relation perspective, no thank you. There is a clear shift of power towards the Western countries, the Western powers that want to support the rebellion, and they are already supporting it. No thank you. So let me just move to this Sudan case. Okay, what was in Sudan? We have this north and south, and we have a dictator. Okay, they clearly differ on some point. The west, the north from the south. And what did the dictator do on the pressure from the Western countries when the pressure was applied? He shared some power. Okay, he accepted in the government some people from the south. And just why he did that? He did that just because to have the legitimation of his power. Okay, he clearly continued that. He clearly continued to violate those people in the south. Clearly went on doing the same thing, but he had a legitimacy from the Western that he accepted some people, okay, in the government. So this is the clear power sharing that happens in such a countries that are really contradicting and have been already in war, okay? So when we approach such a case, no thank you, I will take you later. When we approach such a case like Sudan, we clearly see that the effect of the power sharing is what? Is the separation of the countries. What we have in Sudan now, they separated. North is apart and south is apart, and this is to what power sharing will lead. The power sharing that you want to present us in Libya, and if we are for the maintenance of the structure of the countries, we should support rebels, because they are the only possible solution to keep this country together. Okay? Because Gadafi has some power in the country, but how he has this power, as the first opposition presented, just by threatening and just because he's powerful. If we take the power from him, the support in the tribes will lower or even diminish. So, this is the case how it evolved, and it will not evolve in the way of the Baltic states. Just because there was no war in Baltic states. This is the first thing. So there was no escalation of problems. No war like in Libya. Okay. So secondly, the country are more or less coherent. Probably more coherent than in Libya. That's simple as that. Sure. So the case of Sudan that we are presenting you shows you the long-term effect of what's happening. Okay, please.
Why don't you show to me why it is so bad if they would both get to lead the country that they actually have accountability for in front of their people? People's lives get saved.
Okay, thank you. As I have showed you with the case of Sudan, he accepted some people to the government, and what did he do? He continued doing his job, violating the South. So, if this is the power sharing that you would like to give us, okay, but please, we have to be hypocrite to do that, or to give them a chance to violate. But now moving to the Arabic matter, as we are seeing this in the Arabic world, the power clearly shifts from dictators that didn't want to go along with each other to people power, the democratic regimes. We think so. So, as it was clearly stated by some international relation experts, they will cooperate, and the region has some bright future in front of them just because of the cooperation between the nations. because they will have a common power, and there will be no arguments between dictators. And if we leave Gaddafi and the dictatorship in Libya, what will happen to Libya? Libya will be as excluded from the Arab world as Iran is now. So if we really want to cooperate, and if we want to see this region to foster, to grow, to share their abilities, as we already see Egyptians supporting Libyan rebellions, if we want this region to cooperate, and this is the way in which the world is going, as we see the European Union, the NAFTA. So if there is the move toward the integration, we cannot exclude Libya. So just because of those two things, that rebellions are winning, that the power sharing will lead to the partition of the countries, like I showed you in the Sudan case, and that we need to make the Arabic states work together, and we show that this is profitable for them. We want you to oppose the motion.
Right, thank the speaker for his speech, and invite the final speaker, Governor Amnesty, Governor Secretary.
Right. My speech will address 3 points. First of all, why it's impossible to win the war the way the opposition wants to portray the real world, because that's not the real world they're talking about. Secondly, how power sharing is a better solution on endorsing development in the longer perspective as well, the points about Anna talked about. And thirdly, how this would moderate Gaddafi and other leaders around the world to the very same extension of the second crop. All my rebuttal to the infinitesimal extension of the second opposition will be integrated. Okay, first point, why we cannot win the war. It's obvious that both sides are talking about a little bit different thing, and we think the opposition is missing our point here. They're making a huge assumption that the United Nations Security Council is going to approve land invasion into the country. That's the main assumption they're making. Secondly, the assumption that they're making is that the countries worldwide are going to contribute huge amounts of money to the rebels directly through the rebel command without international supervision, that we're simply going to throw money at them. And we say that's an immense assumption that countries are not going to take. Why? First of all, obviously the United Nations Security Council, as we got a no-fly zone, immense negotiations, not something that drops into our laps, because we had to deal with China being worried about how we're going to propagate neo-colonialism. Like the same point about Russia, the fact that Medvedev and Putin disagree is already a major part in our case. Putin is, as we all know, the more important one. But furthermore, we say, under those points, the United Nations Security Council would also have to sanction in this case why and when we're going to agree. They have provided no sufficient analysis on who are going to support and who are going to go into those countries. That's impossible, because the countries are not going to take that prolonged war onto their resumes and onto their budgets. Secondly, we say, under this point, it's obvious that the sort of support that they guess we're going to throw at the rebels is not going to come. The US is already being hammered because of its intervention in so many countries. And the very same goes for an intervention in Libya, as the US actively restricts its budget that it can spend on the Libyan no-fly zone. So we say in that case, it's obvious that we don't have necessary support. And it's a huge assumption on the side of opposition. No thank you. What we've been talking about on the prop is not that in comparison Gaddafi may be more powerful than the whole of the Western world. What we're talking about is Gaddafi is powerful enough to prolong the war to such extent that the casualties will increase, that we're going to have the infrastructure failure, that we're going to have, in comparison, impossibility, a very minute possibility of gaining actual benefits what the opposition is talking about. So they're also making the whole assumption that war is going to cost less lives and so forth. We're giving you how this escalation of violence is going to perpetuate that sort of thing. But Anna talked specifically about where Gaddafi gets his money from the oil, from the gold, and where the actual troops come from. The mercenaries that you bring in from other countries are not the mercenaries that are defecting to the other side. They're missing the point here where Gaddafi gets his power from. So it's obvious we cannot win the war in this point, as the opposition wants to prove. No thank you. Secondly, why power sharing is the beneficial solution in here, and why it's more benevolent in the longer run as well. We think, firstly, that war is going to propagate the whole concept that power equals might. And if you have the might, if you have the military might, you have the right to take power. And this is exactly what we want to go against in this case. We say to ruin and destruct the political landscape on the future perspective, because obviously you're going to exclude, yes, very same, you're going to exclude one certain group from that power sharing. And it's obvious that in those regions you're going to have the very same rebellions that you're so currently afraid of. We say this is going to perpetuate the conflict as well, both sit down. Secondly, what we think under this point is where the sort of power sharing we're talking about, the second opposition wants to deliberately misinterpret us. They want to say that our power sharing is something that we made in Sudan. I'm going to explain why Sudan is not actually that bad. But we say, furthermore, is the sort of Bosnian power sharing, where each region has its regional leaders, and those leaders actually go and look after the region's development. We say this is what's going to happen because of the free tribe, the sort of autonomy that you grant to each of these sections. Because under their proposition, what they're going to say is, no, but this is going to exclude, it's not going to be fair. We say the example of Sudan, the second opposition brought to the table, is a great example for our case. As we now know, South Sudan actually had an independence, and they had the right to vote, and they declared their independence as a separate country. We say that's a superb outcome in the long run, even if you had, yes, in the short run, whatever sort of minute possibilities we have. But we're secondly going to say how the example of Sudan is actually counterproductive under the third point. But furthermore, like supporting, supporting this one power, or supporting this let's say, no power sharing, when they're mainly going to constitute that the rebels have absolute right to control the country simply because they're rebels, and the previous leaders were bad. You say this is going to happen the same that happened in Rwanda, when we actually significantly supported the counter-genocide, which was taking place after we intervened into Rwanda and set up our own government, when they silently went into Uganda and the Liberation Front actually committed a smaller genocide in there. We said that's an immense harm. Yes?
Sir, the case of Bosnia was only possible just because we intervened there so much. We had such many people there from the West controlling everything. So if you think that we are not going on, from the Western point of view to go into Libya and invest more money, so how we can foster this example of Bosnia?
So what you're saying is essentially that there's a point where we should accept the power sharing deal. We find that's great. But we also furthermore think that the no-fly zone in here falls to our side, why we can actually demonstrate sufficient power in there. Right, on to the third point. What about this whole Gadafi movement and the whole this sort of dictator movement? We're talking about how they're power mongers, and yes, it's not the whole idea that if you have enough power, or if you were violent enough, that then we're going to agree with you. It's a point when you have support, and when you have the support of a certain region, then you have the legitimacy to stay in power in that region. We find that's fair, and that's the fair approach. It's not about if they would be violent without any support in other countries. We would say that's obviously intolerable, and we're not talking about. You're once again misinterpreting us. But what the analyst brought in about how the different dictators will be receiving us is that when we play fair with them, they can actually play fair with us. That we're not unconditionally asking them to surrender in all cases. That power sharing grants them with the same things that they actually wish to have. The sort of perception of sovereignty that will be undermined with our whole relations with the African Union. The same thing that happened in Sudan. The African Union actively said you cannot bring in peace forces if you want to take down Omar al-Bashir, because that was an attack against their sovereignty, against their independence, because we're breaching too many of their rights, because we don't have sufficient grounds to take over the sort of country. For the three reasons we presented to you, we are proud to propose.
Right, I thank the speaker for his speech, for the final speech of this debate, and now I invite the opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do now is to do a very quick summary of the government case. It will be easy to summarize in a few words, in fact. And then I'm going to present you with the areas of clash, which are the same that was presented by the final speaker of the government side, which is whether we can, what are the perspectives of ending this war, secondly, what is the post-war situation going to look like, and finally, the message that we send by our actions to the world. So, first thing is that what they are saying is that we are unable to deal with Gaddafi, so what we need to do is we need to accept what he offers now. Maybe we'd like to do something more, we would like to solve the problem more profoundly, but we are not able. So we, as the more than 300 countries of the world, we just need to cease to intervene, we just need to cease to do anything because we are unable. So you would like, but what you are trying to say and what you've been proving in your first speeches is that you are unable. And I'm going to show you that we are able. So the first thing is whether we can end the war or not. Coming back to this point, you're saying that we are unable. That's why we need to accept Gaddafi. And what's happened? It's a regular rhetoric here. You are trying to say he has the respect of the tribe. They need to be no, thank you. They need to be respected. He has his tribe. He killed some people. So now we are trying to show Gaddafi whether as someone powerful or I don't know if you are trying to show that he is rational, good guy, or are you trying to say that he is so strong that we cannot deal with him? So there's a contradiction that was pointed out. No, thank you. Coming to the areas of clash. First one is the perspectives of ending the war. And what was shown here is that you were talking about the weapons, about the generals, commanders, about how we can stop it or not. But what I'm going to point that out to you is that Gaddafi, firstly, he was saying that no, there was no peace treaty available. I'm going to control. I'm going to hold the whole power. And now he's getting less confident of himself. He's showing that yes, maybe I can offer the power sharing. Why he is offering? Firstly, he was saying no, the country's mine. No, sit down, please. So if he's doing that, it means that he feels the pressure, he feels the international pressure. And it's not only the countries that surround it, but it's not only the weapon case, which can be solved as the first and the second opposition showed you, because we can offer support in this case, but there's also economical links, and the whole world that can condemn him. It will be a big argument for him to go even weaker, and maybe finally it turns out that he can step out. And we don't need to stop at this process because he is going down. He is less and less powerful. So we should not stop that and save him at this point. And that's why we show you that the perspectives of ending the war are quite good. And we should go and we should take the chance. Thank you very much for a second. So, secondly, there was a post-war situation. What are you trying to say only is that there is a tribe that needs some respect, but it also proves our case. It all proves it in this way that the cooperation is impossible. And if we are sharing power, because this tribe hates the other. That's what you were saying. They hate each other, killed each other, they brothers, so they cannot cooperate. So what we are saying is they cannot cooperate, yes, so the power will be inefficient. And what can happen now next? Gaddafi is more powerful now. There might be, what you also admitted, that might be some structural administration problems with the rebels. So what can happen next? The next one happens that the Gaddafi will step over them again. So he will regain his power because at the very start, I'm not saying in the longer perspective, what is our goal? At the very start, they might not be so efficient governors as Gaddafi, so they may be surpassed by his power again. So this is exactly what we are against of. And it is the Sudan case which proved us that the power sharing is only a hypocritical move to just close their mouths and just to make them feel, yes, alright, you have something. But they are in a very good way to gain everything they wanted. And that's why we would like to support them. And furthermore, going with the post-war situation is the Arabic world case. Libya will be excluded, will be condemned. It will be a highly weird formation with Gaddafi and rebels very unstable that cannot reinforce its economy. So this is how it's not going to cooperate. it's not going to rebuild its country, and it's going to be it's going to be destroyed even further. And then what can happen? Gaddafi can regain power. Go on.
Okay, if chances of winning the war are good, why recently Gadafi has retaken the cities of Bin Jawad, Ras Ranuf and Orad?
I will deal with the response to my last point. So, what is because I'm running out of time. What is the message that we are sending? And this is the third and maybe the key point. What is the message? We are saying, Mr. Dictator, can you give us a little bit, please? Or are we saying, we condemn you, we support revolution, we think that they have right, so if they have right to rebel against you, they have right to raise voice and gain some power, we should support them to the very extent. We should not stop at this moment. We might support you if you are self-sufficient, but if you are struggling, stop it now. So dictator, give them something to keep them shut, and then everything will be fine. This is the semi-solution. This is the semi-solution that cannot be efficient. And the Arab world cases showed you differently that the rebels can gain power and then can develop it, and this will be the start of the democratic values that can develop in this region. So what we've proven you is that the world can end, firstly, that the post-war situation with our solution is looks way more better, and finally that the message that we want to send is that the democratic can be present in the Arab world. And I beg you to oppose this case by the government.